Welcome to The Explainer, the day we are diving into a couple of really powerful ideas that might just completely reframe how you think about mission. We're talking about the difference between being a witness and a lawyer, and this kind of shocking concept of the 20-year-old spiritual baby. So let's just jump right in with a question that I think gets at a fear a lot of us have. Do you ever feel like you can't talk about your faith because you don't have all the answers? Like you have to be some kind of expert lawyer to even open your mouth? Yeah, this fear is so common, and it's almost like we've built this courtroom in our heads. We imagine ourselves on the stand, needing to be this brilliant, flawless lawyer who can win any argument. And honestly, who can live up to that? So a lot of the time, we just decide it's easier to stay quiet. But what if we've got the job description completely wrong? I mean, what if our role in this whole thing isn't to be the lawyer in the first place? What if we've put this massive burden on ourselves that was never ours to carry? And this brings us to a reframe that is a total game changer. It's this shift away from trying to win an argument and towards simply telling a story. It's about understanding the huge difference between being a lawyer and being a witness. I mean, look, it's right here in the book of Acts. Jesus never told his followers, "You're going to be my lawyers." Nope. He was super specific. He said, "You will be my witnesses." And that isn't just a random word choice. That is a fundamental shift in what the job actually is. And just think about the difference in pressure here. A lawyer? They've got to know all the laws. They need clever arguments. Their whole goal is to win. But a witness? Their job is way simpler and frankly a lot more authentic. All they have to do is tell an honest story about what they saw, what happened to them. The goal isn't winning, it's just telling the truth. So here's the big takeaway. Your most powerful tool isn't some thick theology book, it's your story. It's your testimony. You know, people can debate ideas until they're blue in the face, but nobody can argue with your experience. They can't tell you that you didn't feel anxious and then find peace. That story, that's your undeniable truth. Okay, so now that we've kind of reframed how we share our faith, let's tackle this second big idea. What's the point of all this? After that initial moment of, new life, what's the actual goal of spiritual growth? Where are we headed? To get at this next point, the source material uses this really vivid metaphor. Just picture it, a maternity ward in a hospital. It's full of newborns. They're crying, they need milk, they are completely and totally dependent. And it's a beautiful thing, right? It's a sign of new life. But imagine walking back into that same room, only it's 20 years later, and you see the same people, but they're now 20 years old, still in the cribs, still in giant diapers, still unable to feed themselves. What was once beautiful is now, well, it's a tragedy. It's honestly the stuff of horror movies. And that disturbing image brings us right to this really powerful concept, the tragedy of the 20-year-old spiritual baby. The argument here is that a lot of our spiritual communities are filled with them, people who had that beautiful new life moment years ago, but for whatever reason, just never grew up. So why does this happen? Well, maybe it's because we've been measuring maturity with the wrong ruler. The source argues it's not about how many Bible verses you've memorized or how many books you've read. The true measure of spiritual maturity is reproduction. Are you helping someone else grow? This whole idea perfectly sets up another crucial distinction, the difference between being a convert and being a disciple. You can think of it as the difference between being a fan in the stands and a player on the field. Think about it. A convert, a fan, shows up to the game, they watch, they cheer, they enjoy the wins, but at the end of the day, they're a consumer. A disciple, though, is a player. They're on the field, they're training, they're sweating, they're contributing to the team, and they are actively involved in the mission. So if the goal is to create players, not just fans, how in the world does that actually happen? How do you create a lasting legacy instead of just being a spiritual dead end? Well, the Apostle Paul actually laid out a super simple 4-generation strategy for this. You've got Paul, the teacher. He invests everything he has in Timothy, his student. Then he tells Timothy, your job is to find reliable people and teach them the same stuff. And in turn, those reliable people are then equipped to go and teach others. See that? It's a chain of multiplication. And this isn't just some nice idea. It's framed as absolutely essential because faith is always just one generation away from going extinct. If that baton doesn't get passed, the race just stops. The goal, then, is to be a conduit that faith flows through, not just a container where it stops with you.
And this all connects right back to the very last command Jesus gave his followers. And notice the very specific language he used. He didn't say, go and make converts. He said, go and make disciples. And a huge part of that is teaching them. That's the baton pass, right there.
So all of this leaves us with a final and pretty challenging question. Most of us, if we think about it, could probably name a Paul in our lives, someone who has taught us and invested in us. But if the real goal is to be a player, not a fan, a conduit, not a container, then the question we all have to ask ourselves is this: who is your Timothy? Who are you intentionally passing that baton to?